Okay, so thoughts on Spike. I have a lot of them, so this could get long. Um, First of all, I want to address one of the most common complaints I have seen about him, namely that a lot of people don't like kind of the direction his character took after like season two. They don't like him, not being a badass villain anymore. They don't like him being all lovesick over Buffy or like babysitting Dawn or all that stuff. And to those people, let me explain you a thing. First of all, like, if Spike were to remain evil the whole time, there would be no reason for Buffy not to kill him. So if you want him to stay on the show, he's got to go through some kind of character development. Second, I mean, it's a Joss Whedon show. There are virtually no static characters. Of course he's going to change over time. It would be boring otherwise. Third, I really feel like it's not like, it's in keeping with how he always was from the beginning. Like, even, back in season two when he was, the big bad, he still had that sentimental side, He's still, like, completely nuts for Drusilla. And so I think it makes sense for him to be, sort of driven by romantic love. And what else was I going to say? And yeah, the whole thing, like, with him and Dawn, he is actually kind of the reason why I don't completely hate Dawn, why I actually like her now a lot more than I used to. Like, when she first showed up on the show, I was just like, wow, you're really annoying. But, it's like watching them interact and seeing them sort of have this weird little friendship, just like, there's nothing I don't love about it. And, yeah. And that, like, to sort of switch gears completely here, I'm really sad that Angel got cancelled before we got to see more of his character development there. Like, I feel like, his entire arc with, on Buffy had sort of played itself out, and, his death was, a fitting end to that whole thing. But then, like, on Angel, there's so much that have been done with, like, with this new setting and this new group of characters. Like, first of all, his relationship with Angel himself, there's so much to be done there. Like, you could see a little, like, the beginnings of what could have been a really cool, like, ongoing thing with, like, him and Angel. They start out just completely, like, constantly at each other's throats, but then gradually, like, you see them start to have these moments, like, at the end of, what was that episode called? Damage, I think, the one with the crazy Slayer, where, they're in the hospital room, and they have that whole conversation, she's an innocent victim, well, so were we once upon a time. I love that. I want more of that. And, in like, A Hole in the World, when they're working together, and you actually see, when they have a common goal, they make a really good team. And, yeah, and I want more of that. I want more of an exploration of, like, of Spike's, like, daddy issues, kind of, regarding Angel. Like, in, Destiny, was it? When he says, Drusilla made me a vampire, but you made me evil. I want that, those issues to be explored more. I want so much more of that. And then, like, with the other characters on that show, too, I want to, I would have liked to see an episode where, like, where Spike, for some reason, gets sent on a mission with Wesley, and they're, like, arguing the whole time, and, like, in the car fighting over the radio stations or something, and then, like, by the end, they have to work together, and they, develop more respect for each other by the end. That would be cool. Or, like, something with him and Gunn, more of him and Fred. I wish Fred hadn't died, for one thing, because that was bullshit. I want more. And maybe I should read the comics. That's the thing, because I haven't read any of those. And I've heard both positive and negative reviews of them, but I want to read them just to see what happens, to see more of these characters that I love. Oh, there was another thing I wanted to say, going back to my point from the beginning about the whole, like, the complaint that people have about Spike, that he's, you know, not badass anymore or whatever. Like, you know, the thing that I love that whole process. I love seeing him grow and change, because here's the thing, like, vulnerability to me is about 1,000,000 times more interesting and more endearing than, like, coolness. Like, I don't really care so much if someone is cool. I care if they have some sort of qualities that make me sympathize with them. Like, the damaged characters, man, you know, those are the ones that are the most interesting to me. And yeah, and I like, I remember when I was watching through the show for the first time, you know, at the end of season 6, when we learned that Spike's getting his soul back, I was just like, fuck! Ah. And then, like, I remember I was downloading season 7, and I was waiting for the download, and I was so impatient, because I wanted to see what ensouled Spike was going to be like, and then, like, the first episode of season 7, I was just, like, waiting for him to show up again, and then we see him, like, crazy in the basement. I was just like, oh, this is going to be good, because he's just, he kills me. I'm more obsessed with him right now than with any other fictional character, because he does things to me that I can't fully explain. And, like, and his whole relationship with Buffy, I talked about this in one of my previous videos, but I just love how it progresses slowly over, like, almost the entire course of the show. Like, they start out as enemies, and then they wind up kind of having to work together, and they sort of slowly become friends, and then, like, you have Spike's unrequited, like, crush on Buffy, which is just, like, you know, when that first started, at first I just thought it was hilarious. Like, you know how Xander reacts in the episode Crush when Buffy tells him that Spike's in love with her? That was me. Like, I just thought it was, you know, really funny, and I like seeing Spike suffer in kind of a schadenfreude kind of way. But then, like, at the end of Fool for Love, when, like, Buffy's crying on the porch and Spike comes up and is just sort of awkwardly patting her on the back, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. I think I'm having an emotion. And then, once you get to Intervention, which is one of my favorite episodes, like, at the end, that kiss, like, that is my favorite kiss of theirs. Like, even more than, like, some of the later ones that were more, like, passionate or romantic or whatever. That one is the one that just hits me the hardest, because it's just, like, that's where you see kind of the shift in Buffy's perception, where she doesn't think that he's, like, she doesn't see him as a monster anymore. He's become something greater in her eyes. And I think even though she denies it later on, I think she does start to develop feelings for him at that point. That's my theory. And yeah. It's weird, but I think I actually sort of, like, shipped them more before they became canon, if that makes sense. Like, I liked the bond that they had by the end of Season 5. And sort of early on in Season 6, how, like, he sort of became her confidant. And, like, you could tell he sort of understood her in a way that most of the other people in her life did not. And, but then, like, once they actually started having sex, you know, the sex was hot, but it was really depressing because, you know, she's, like, sort of using him to sort of ignore her problems, and at the same time, it's, it's heartbreaking because he's just consistently there for her, and he's trying to support her in the only way he knows how. He's, in some ways he's good at that, but in other ways he's not, because he's never really been in that kind of situation before. So he just does the only thing he can think of to try and make her feel better, which is sex. And she just kind of consistently denies having any kind of feelings for him. And that's just really sad. And yeah. The other thing about Spike, again, to switch directions abruptly, is that, like, I pretty much ship him with everyone at this point. Like, I have read so much fanfic. Like, pairings that I would not have previously considered, like Spike Xander, I originally did not really think of. But then I read a whole bunch of fic, and I was just like, whoa, this is pretty awesome. And then, like, you have Xander, you have Angel, Giles, like, Wesley, like, even, the pairings that, in canon, they wouldn't really appear to have much chemistry. I'll still read the fic, because it's hot. I mean, why wouldn't it be? And, yeah. I think I'm out of things to say now. Yeah. Bye.